Sometimes the worst possible people are those who fundamentally change the way that society thinks as a whole, for the worse. Giovanni Gentile is known as the father of fascism, and as such should be considered one of the greatest terrors the planet has ever seen. Why would one philosophize in such a destructive manner? Is it as bad as it looks? Let's find out.
Giovanni Gentile was born in Castelvetrano, Sicily, on the 30th of May, 1875. As he grew, two main merits occupied his conduct. The first is autoctasy, or self-construction relating to oncology, in which the spirit becomes aware of itself and construction. He learned this from Mazzini, Rosmini, Gioberti, and Spaventa. The second is Wissenschaftslehre, which he learned from the Germans Karl Marx, Hegel, and Fichte. Wissenschaftslehre is the study of science and relates to epistemology. Wissenschaftslehre makes no assumptions. As such, though Gentile was a Catholic, some believe it was only culturally. Because of his drive, talent, knowledge, and success as a student, Gentile would go on to become a professor at several universities, a commissioner, a director, and later vice president of Bocconi University in Milan. In 1922, Gentile was named Minister of Public Education by Benito Mussolini. Gentile made changes to the education system in a hope that he could create a stronger name for Italy. One such change was that all institutional education be taught in Italian. It was at this time that Gentile began to expand on his philosophies and express how he believed that philosophy and life should be coupled and mold each other just as previous philosophers had hoped. In essence, he believed that society was being shortchanged by not having more philosophy in it, leading it on, and philosophy was also consequently swindled. So he went forward and tried to accomplish what others hadn't, a government, or rather people, in harmony with philosophy. In 1925, Gentile led two constitutional reform commissions that aided the establishment of the corporate state of fascism. He would go further to serve as the president of the Fascist State's Grand Council of Public Education, and later gain membership on the powerful Fascist Grand Council. Gentile believed that individualism cannot be, because we are all connected to each other's sphere of thought and influence. He believed that reality itself was an inevitable consequence of the collective thoughts and actions of everyone, and thus transcendent and spiritual. Further, it was thought that it was almost impossible to know what course reality would take without knowing where its individual pieces lie, meaning mostly people and goods as far as fascism is concerned. Gentile thought that if people could note and systemize every item of interest, that heads of state could control and thus shape Italy and the world. Because of his beliefs in 1832, Gentile began being called the philosopher of fascism. Gentile began to write books on his thoughts, which were well received. Gentile wrote the Manifesto of the Fascist Intellectuals, which was signed by a number of writers and intellectuals, including Luigi Pirandello, Gabriele D'Annunzio, Filippo Tommaso Marinetti, and Giuseppe Ungaretti. Despite all of this, Gentile was a true philosopher and did not want other lines of thinking completely silenced. Gentile is often misperceived as wanting to hush up individual thought and ideas against his own because his fascist philosophy believes that only collective consciousness is important. In reality, he had other theories, such as positivism, absolute solipsism, and actual idealism, but tried to make them line up. In 1943, fascism fell, but Gentile was still devoted to his country despite some of their choices. Mussolini established the Republic of Salo, a puppet state of Nazi Germany. But Gentile was against the anti-Semitism of the Nazis. Gentile decided to support Italy as much as possible in this time by accepting a role in the government at the Royal Academy of Italy. In 1944, Gentile was arguing for the release of anti-fascist intellectuals. On the way home, Gentile was murdered by a mob of anti-fascists, led by Bruno Fanciulli. He was then buried in the church of Santa Croce in Florence.
Much of Gentile's life and mind are a mystery. Benedetto Croce wrote that Gentile holds the honor of having been the most rigorous neo-Hegelian in the entire history of Western philosophy, and the dishonor of having been the official philosopher of fascism in Italy. Perhaps Gentile was simply expressing his philosophical ideas, and it all got carried away by others while he was attempting to keep balance. When it got out of hand, you decide. I'll see you next time.